And the reason why this testing is going to be different from how we generally do testing, that's just by a model that predict, is because here we have the teacher forcing to take into consideration, as while passing our inputs we also have this pre-output which we have to pass, or the second input which we have to pass, which actually is not an output but an input too. So after training a model, and supposing we have this input I love deep learning, for example, we shall pass this input, and then we shall pass just the start token and pass, let's say, no values right here. So since we are doing testing, we don't know these values, so it means this will be nothing, this will be an empty token, or just space, this will be space, and so on and so forth. So there is nothing right here, whereas we have just a start token. Now the model form is going to use this and this input to predict a value for this very first output we have here. Now we shall also have, or we may have, other values which are not space in these other positions, but we shall not take that into consideration for the very first pass. So we have this input, we have the start token, we have space which fills the rest, and then we get this output. If we have this output, for example, is G, the word G, what we do is we pass again this input, we pass the start token, and we also pass this G. So the second time we pass in the start, we pass in the G, and then all of this is space. The reason we're passing the G is because that's what we had in the previous output. So no matter what where you have here, you take this and then pass it this way now. So the second time we have start G and space, space, space to the end, we pass again. If we obtain M, we repeat the same process. That is, we have now start G and M and the rest space. We pass again. If we have L, we repeat that up to the point where we have a space in the output. So if we have a space in the output, it means we've gotten to the end, and then we could simply stop from there. So basically that's it. Now the vocabularies we're creating, all of these have numerical values, and for example the space is 0, the start token is 2, and all these have their own values. So let's look at the code and see how we could implement this testing. So suppose we have this test data, which is equals tf.data.dataset dot from tensor slices. Take this up. We have this. We have, for example, I will try. Suppose we have I will try. Now this has been taken from our trading data, so it's gonna have a good prediction. But in order for you to have very great results, you need to train on the full data set, which will take more time. So for that, we'll just do this. We have this input I will try. Now notice that we add this because we have the batch dimension. So that's it. Copy this, and then we have the init test, or let's just call it init test. So this is going to now have the start token. Recall that we have to pass not just the input but also that pre-output, which is with the start token. So we have the start token, we have now the actual input we want to translate. So that's it. We could run this. Now this hasn't run yet because we have left the training to continue here. So let's look at this. We see how the blue score increases from 71, that's from 0.71 to about 0.75, and similar for the validation, while the validations also are dropping, the losses too are dropping. So let's just stop this kernel for now and then get back to this. Okay, so we can run this. Now we run this, and what next? We have to make this input ready for our model, and to do this we're just gonna use what we had done previously. That is, we're gonna use this vectorized layers we had seen already. So we had already this vectorized input layer and then this vectorized pre-output layer. So we're going to use basically this to convert that input sentence into some data that can be passed into our model. So we have that. We have now the test or let's call it the input test data is equals the test data, which is this. Then we map it using the vectorized layer we had built previously. So with this we have input, and then we have the pre-output test data, which is equals the test data, or rather the init test data. That's this init test data dot map vectorize pre-output layer. So that's fine. Now with this we could run this now. Let's now see the converted output. That's after this has gone through the vectorized layer, we can now get its output and see what's gonna pass through the model exactly. So we have for I in the input test data dot take, we just have one, so we have that. We could print out I, and then for I in input, or rather pre-output data, that's test data dot take, that print out. So if we run this, okay, this small error, we have that. Okay, so with this we see how we have the inputs that has been converted, and then we have the pre-output which too has been converted. Now if you have the pre-output, or if you come back to this vectorize this one, yeah, have this dot get vocabulary, run that. You could see clearly that this is the zeroth value. This is let's actually select the value. So if we choose the second value, see we have stat token, so it's logical that we should have 2 right here. And then if you have for the input for 2 is I, so that's why we have this right here. So once we have this, is fine, and then we can now actually pass this through the model. We can now define this function get output, which basically uses an input that's 2 inputs, like we could define from here. Let's say input 1 is this I, so this is input 1, and then this is input 2. So input 2, this other I. We will run this, that's fine. Let's take this off. Okay, so we have this now which passes into this. The model, the predict function as usual takes in input 1, input 2, and then we pass this through the argmax to convert it from the 1-hot notation back to this notation. So we have this, we run it. We can now do get output, call this get output in 1, in 2. So we're taking this in 1 and in 2 we've defined right here. We run that, and that's what we have. So we have this. Now let's put this in the variable output equals this, run that again, and then we could define, that is, we could actually from this, because for example if we print this out, we have print out output, that we'll see clearly that what we have here is just figures, but we're actually interested in getting the word outputs. So we're just gonna have this, that's we're gonna link this up with the vocabularies which we built already. So for each of this we're gonna print out the corresponding words. So we have for I in range sequence length which we've defined previously. We're gonna have get the vocabulary, or print, let's print this out. So print out get vocabulary, but this is that of the vectorized output layer. So that's it. And then once we try to get this vocabulary, we're gonna take the output at every time, since we are taking the first value of the batch, because we were dealing with the first batch. We now take that, and then we select the I. So with this, that will be fine. We could run this now, and we have this clearly, which is not bad, but it's not exactly what we should have, given that I will try, it doesn't mean je. This je actually means I. So let's now suppose that we've gotten that, and then in the start token, instead of having just start token, we put this je and run this again. So So coming back to the slide, actually here we have je, and we're taking that je and passing it back right here. Although we don't know the remaining values, we should just have start token je, have the same input, and then see what we get at this level. Also note that even if we had, for example, je mange, for let's suppose we had je mange at the level at the place of the je, we are not going to consider this mange, we're just going to consider just this je. So we have to take this and put here, and then this will not be taken into consideration. So coming back to this, we've passed the je now, run this, and that's fine. We see we have je vais. Now we haven't had a space yet, we still have outputs. So let's now collect this vais and then pass again inside here, run this. You see we have je vais essayer, which is just perfectly correct, as I will try actually signifies je vais essayer.